It's such a pleasure to meet you. Most of your movies have been family friendly. How did you come up with the idea to do an R-rated puppet movie?
Well, well, first of all, I wanted to do something in this vein. I have a live show called Puppet Up Uncensored. It's a theater show that I started 12 years ago. And it goes out every year, and it's largely improvised. The audience is making suggestions all the time. And it's interesting because it allows me to know what audiences kind of wish the puppets would do. And it's very blue and it's very adult is what I've learned. And it's a lot of fun. It's kind of delightfully naughty to do that. So I then wanted to do something like this live show, but on camera, and I realized I couldn't do sort of PG-13 because I have a reputation of doing things that are family friendly. I needed to do something where I knew the kids would not come to it. So instead I had to go even further to really a hard R rating to make sure that people knew this is not for kids, this is for adults. If you grew up liking the puppets that I've done in the past and things like that, as for kids, now you can see something that is exclusively adult, that's completely uncensored, and something that really will make you laugh. And so, and I know it sort of shakes it all up. It shakes up everything, everybody's expectation of me. And I don't know, hopefully people won't kill me for it.
Well, I read that your father, Jim Henson, started out doing adult puppet-based humor on shows like Saturday Night Live.
Yes, not so much started out, but he was always, his very first show was a comedy spot in late night news programming in Washington, D.C., and it was 50s, so it wasn't adult in content, but he always thought of himself as an adult performer. Sesame Street was the unusual choice for him. He was regularly on the Ed Sullivan Show and all that stuff. The Muppets was a variety act. He did advertisement campaigns that were really hysterical, but not kidsy in any way. But then he wanted to do the Muppet Show, and Sesame Street had been so popular that none of the networks would believe that the Muppet Show could work. And that's when he decided to do Saturday Night Live. He wanted to really show people, no, my roots are in a much more adult sensibility. And Saturday Night Live, when it first came out, was highly controversial. It was going to be the most out there, daring show ever made. It was on late night, 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. And he did that first season, really to remind people that he had a much more adult side to him. This is more adult than anything he had done, but we're in times now where you can do that, where you can make a movie that is specifically and only for adults and make sure that's really the only place it's seen.
Having said that, what do you think he would have loved most about the Happytime murders?
I don't know. Probably the pornography store sequence, just because there's something that particularly Vinny, the owner of the pornography store, is just such a wonderful, believable character, and he's so sleazy and so gross, but believable. And to be able to portray characters like that with a puppet is really kind of terrific. I think my dad liked naughty. He liked things to be naughty, to do something that you really weren't meant to do. And in that sense, we do that quite a lot in this movie.
Melissa McCarthy's deadpan delivery is just perfect in this. What did you like most about working with her?
That aspect of how she keeps it real, and yet people expect her to say what you're maybe thinking but would never say. They expect Melissa to say it, and that's kind of great, and that's kind of the energy of this whole movie. But she keeps it real, because puppets they only work really well if you create a world where you believe that the puppets are really living in this world, and the main way you do that is making sure that the actors that are working there are treating them like they're real and alive. And Melissa always keeps it very real. And what's interesting is in her preparation, everything's about, I don't know that I believe this, I don't believe this. And then she'll start improvising. And she'll start making choices that are like right out of another universe. And it's great because she starts by, I'm going to be in a very believable real place, and then she starts making choices that are so unexpected. And I think that's delightful and what makes her such a strong comedian. And it throws, in a good way, the others who are in a scene with her in a good way. It sort of pulls things in an unexpected, surprising direction.
And finally, what are the complications between working with puppets and humans on the same screen?
Tons, but I have lots of experience in that. I think for me that wasn't the hardest aspect of making this movie because that's something I've been doing, but it is really complicated because the puppets, there can be no floor underneath the puppets because that's where the puppeteers are, and they have to see monitors, and planning a scene is really difficult that has both people and puppets in it. But it's something that we've been doing for quite a long time. For me, the hardest in this one was taking the improvising, because puppets are usually the opposite of improvising. Everything is very carefully worked out in advance, because you can't even rehearse a scene with puppets, because every move they make has to be carefully planned. So normally a puppet movie is so carefully planned and then executed and doesn't have wiggle room. What's great about this movie is we pulled in that improvising so that the puppets and the actors are also improvising, and that is a very difficult mix to have the looseness of improvising combined with the technical demands of working with puppets. But it's what gave us a flavor like we've never seen in a puppet movie.
Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, sure, it's my pleasure.